So welcome everybody. So good to see you today. Welcome to Early Childhood Exploration of Water. We're really excited to be presenting this to you. My name is Jody Ader. I'm from the Office of Early Childhood, and Sarai Bakal from the Office of STEM. Both of us are going to be presenting today. And with us, we also have Alice Danner, the Director of Early Childhood, and we have Joaquin Rodriguez from the Office of STEM and Science. So welcome to you all. We're really glad you took the time to be with us today. We're hoping that lots of what we're going to do today will be something you can use and go with, very transferable to different subjects. So we're excited to present to you. Okay.
So we've kind of been going over the protocols as you've been coming in, but just please be aware that we are recording this session. So be self-aware of your surroundings. Turn off your video if you can't, if you know how, because that would be helpful. And mute your microphones for now. We will provide some time at the end of the session for you to ask any questions. And yeah, that's it. Thanks for being here today. We really appreciate you joining us.
Just one more thing, we will have the attendance in the chat box at the end of the PD, so you can fill that out in your own time. And okay, and we'll moderate questions. If you know how to use the chat box, you can type something in there. Okay.
Okay, so today we're going to be covering a lot of things. I am from the STEM department, and Jody and I work closely in developing these PowerPoints, and a lot of what we present has to do with STEM activities, which involve science, technology, engineering, and math, which means the children are hands-on building, thinking about how the math works in, how it affects science. If I could have everybody mute their mics, please, just because some background noises are distracting. One second. Okay. Today you'll be learning about water through hands-on exploration and opportunities to observe it in its various forms. And that does appear in several, in all of our years from pre-K to second grade. Sort of. In pre-K, we have a unit on water. In kindergarten, we have weather and solids and liquids. And I put first grade light and solar patterns, even though it doesn't directly refer to water activities. There's many things you can do with light and water, and we'll talk about that later in the slideshow. And in second grade, we do talk about properties and patterns of water. So you can see how it is visited throughout the early years. And we have a little quote on the bottom. Jody, could you read it? Because I can't see it through.
Sure. Sure. Experience the nature of science as a way of making sense of the world rather than a prescribed set of steps and beliefs. You know, science is like magic, but it's real. And today we're going to do some, you know, a lot of us feel like, oh, it's science, it needs to be a certain way. And we're really going to talk about it through the early childhood lens, which is more just all the subjects are learned at one time. And really, that's very much like STEM, because STEM is really science, technology, engineering, and math, and also STEAM would be art. So we're going to be looking at all of that. If you have attended, you know, you're not sure what your curriculum is in the summer, there's always a way to bring water in. And this very long PowerPoint, but we're going to go through it really quickly. But we'll bring in some ideas of how to bring it to many different subjects that you're teaching. So, okay. Okay.
Yeah, so how do we use water in the summertime? So it's going to be a little bit different for us this summer than previous summers, right? But Summer in the City is a song but also something that we experience and in a different way than other kids do around the country, really. So we want to really focus on how water is available to our families this summer, what they can do to enjoy it and to explore it and to have fun with it.
Nice. So we want to build our background knowledge. There are so many ways. There's so many ways in which the kids have experiences with water through their pets, brushing their teeth, drinking, cleaning. We have the toilet, we have sink, bathtub, watering plants. And really, that's really important to just bring that to our kids and just remind them of what they know. They know so much about water already before we begin. So something just to begin, really, we're not doing random strategies of just random things about water. And this is very important that it's based in your curriculum. Whatever your curriculum is, you're going to find a way to bring water into it. It may not be directly there, but even if you're teaching, you know, fiction and nonfiction, there's lots of ways to bring water in. And so we'll give you examples. And these are different examples, fiction and nonfiction together. So today we're going to talk about digital dioramas. This is Sarai's amazing word because we're using lots of virtual tours and in a way we're not actually going on a virtual tour. It's more of a digital diorama. You're going to step into a space.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to talk about this one?
Sure. So even though we just said we're not taking virtual tours,
we're not going to go.
We're not going to go on the virtual tour, but yeah, everything seems to be virtual tours these days, and that just means that you're visiting a place that you haven't seen before close up, and there's lots of water tours. So just even going to aquariums now, they have tons of videos that you can walk through an aquarium. You can see things close up. There's even divers who will explain things to you. You can go into rainforests, into parks and experience things. A colleague even mentioned that some cruise ships are going to be doing virtual tours. So there's lots of opportunities for virtual tours involving water.
Great. So when we're thinking about this, we want to think about our students. Where do we see water in New York City? And that's going to be very different and really will be different for all of us. You know, are we seeing it from the fire hydrants? Are we seeing it in parks? Not everyone is going to an ocean, maybe in Central Park or different parks in New York City, Fort Tryon parks in different places. So what we're going to do is we're going to think about the different bodies of water and you know how this is presented. This may be lots of information and you'll select from this. So we have these ideas about these specific bodies of water. And what we're going to do is we're going to pair it with a book. And so really think about, well, how am I going to integrate in and design a lake? So when we say the words lake, river, and pond, it's not necessarily what you're imagining, a lake, river, and pond. You're going to think of it in the early childhood realm. How do kids put their hands on things? How are we going to design it so families have access, so it's a family experience? Using recycled materials is wonderful for that. Here's something that you can do as a digital diorama where you have, you know, this might be a river or a lake, and you can input some animals on it. And then we have our little Winnie the Pooh, and you can do like an I Spy type of thing. What do you see on here? And so what we're really introducing is not just water by itself, but how it's integrated with fish and other animals and how it looks different, and really teaching our kids to find things and plant things in there is fun for them. So we have, here we might have a stream, or this might be a marsh, right? So we can put different animals. We have the crocodile with the birds, and we're looking for our friend Winnie the Pooh. We're noticing some different animals hidden, frogs, foxes, so different animals. We have some things happening.
So if you were doing ecosystems now or before, this is a nice tie-in to what ecosystems did you talk about that are centered around bodies of water, and kind of move into the whole water idea for the summer.
Mm-hmm. And this is also a way, you have this on a very big screen, talking it through. There's lots of math in this. How many swans, how many animals are in the water, how many animals are on the grass. There's lots of ways to tie it in. So you have, this will be yours to be used. There's the owl. And then we think about the ocean. So while we might say, wow, how am I going to bring the ocean to a child? Definitely think of sensory experiences and the language. So under the sea, we have a book that's going to be paired with these different things. Underwater, in the water, on the water, lots of phrases that our kids are in the process of learning. And then we have the beach. This is, our world is definitely looking different now. I'm not sure how New York beaches are looking currently, but what we did with this is just a beach experience. When you're showing the word beach, you really want to have kids find things. So we're going to look for Winnie the Pooh. We're going to look for what animals we have, and I put in a bunch of different animals that are in there that kids can look for. And then there's the concept of underwater. So we have, there's Winnie under the water, and we have different animals. And there'll be kids that will respond. You might have had something like this in your classroom. Sometimes teachers put this on for quiet time, and children would recognize it. But it's really important to spend a little time on one picture rather than like 100, even though we are currently looking at 100, specifically for early learners. And then for something like a waterfall, which is just an incredible experience, the phenomenon of a waterfall is like, wow, how could you not watch that? And thinking about, here we have this picture, what do we see? we have something crunchy. So we're going to talk a little bit about sensory ideas. Think about, so as we're getting ready to build in how water might look, we're going to think about different ways to bring in some sensory activities, a bunch of different terms that you can use: full, empty, more, less, heavy, light, solid, liquid, pour it out, spill it, spray it, squeeze it, float, sinking, hot, warm, cold. All those things, really, really important. And in context, we don't want to just teach the words randomly. We want to use it so it's a valuable experience. Sarah, you want to?
Sorry, so keeping an eye out on that. Okay, yeah, so we have here how much. So we're talking about using different types of containers to see the difference in volume. Of course, volume is a little bit of a, you may not use that with preschoolers and kindergartens, but you're still measuring water with non-standard units of measurements. You're pouring the same amount of liquids of water into different types of containers to see how it changes shape. You're estimating using containers and tools, like how many cups of water go into this. Does it work the same for this other container? So just letting them explore and discover how water looks different in different containers, how the same amount of water looks in a rectangular container versus a round container, and doing a lot of exploring that way to enjoy water. So here again, I'm just showing the difference between non-standardized measurement and standardized measurement. So non-standardized means that you're not using numbers like on the right, where you have the amount of cups. You can see that there are numbers on there like 1 cup, 1.5. On the left, you're just pouring. You might use a plastic container to call that 1 cup, and that would be a non-standardized measurement, or a bottle, or whatever you're using.
So I'm jealous of these kids in somebody's backyard, because this is really just a wonderful way of letting kids have the experience of what you can do with water, how you can explore with it. These are some words: flow, pour, fill, empty.
Mm-hmm. I was actually thinking, sorry to interrupt for a second, to go back to that other slide. I was thinking, if that's really not feasible for somebody to do that in their space, maybe using straws and seeing how you can connect bendy straws together to move water around and see how it flows through.
Well, also in the sink in a kitchen is a wonderful place for sensory. It might require the child steps on a stool, and of course they're going to be with an adult who's going to give some materials, but it doesn't have to be a lot of water. That's the piece that people think, oh, the water's going to spill all over everything, and so it's really a possibility. This is just, how does water move? And thinking about, you can make things. Again, this is another backyard I wish I had. I would be playing with this, but because it's very interesting, it's amazing. And it's just recycled materials, and it's watching what happens. It's cause and effect. This is real science, and real, kids are putting ideas together. So building on the background knowledge, we did a PD with plants. We did something with all the different aspects of plants, and now it's like, okay, what else do we know about plants? How are plants watered? Why do we water plants? What do plants need to grow? It's not the largest part of what we're doing with plants. It's an aspect, and it's just to build in what they've already learned about plants.
Right, and there are different ways of growing plants. One of them being hydroponics, where it's just using water to grow. So there are different ways of also watering plants, like a sprinkler system. I don't know, some kids may have seen that. So there are different aspects of water that you can kind of tie into the plant unit.
All right, so we can start making bubbles. We're going to start looking at some books. If you decide to do something with bubbles, there's definitely going to be some kids' books on things, on bubbles. So it is a very hands-on, very, very happy entertainment for a very long period of time. We highly recommend it. It's a simple chemistry, a simple kind of chemistry.
And you can definitely, if I can say about the bubbles, is a very accessible materials at home that you can just mix and create your own bubble solution, basically using dish soap and maybe some sugar and water. And it does last for a long time, and you can use many different home containers from home to create the bubble wand.
Yeah,
and you can see that
with a pipe cleaner, different things too. So we have some pictures of sensory tubs. This might be something very accessible for lots of families where you're not necessarily going to put things in the yard, but you're going to let your child have the opportunity to explore. And it's really important, as you're talking to families, to have the kids really, watch what the kids are doing. Are they taking the frog and hitting it on their head? Are they actually taking the frog and putting it on the lily pad? And that's really going to give information if they understand what a frog is, how it moves. So we have lots of ideas for sensory. Here's a whole ocean and ways to build things for kids. And plastic bags are wonderful. We have oil and water and food coloring, and people throwing glitter and water beads. These are just some examples. This is something that I created. The gloves has been a very fun sensory toy. You can put eyes on them. If people have the gloves now, they're probably gloves in homes. You can fill it with water. I would do 2 gloves in each so it doesn't burst. And they're fun for kids for just holding a little animal, but also a possibility for some math and counting by 2s, and building that into your.
Well, you're also talking about how the sciences or the math, that it fills up the whole glove, right? So you're talking about volume and how much goes into it. And yeah, it's a fun thing to play with.
Okay, so these play-based learning, there's the sensory fish, where you can really learn a lot with this with observation. You can see, what the cause and effect is, what happens when you put the fish in and the water's in there, what happens when you shake it up, what happens when, so you just want to really let the children explore in that way and notice. And this is a way to build in vocabulary as well. you're describing what you see. I see the fish going up. I see the fish going down. And
Right.
so we also can build in like color, sorting, fine motor skills, identifying letters and numbers. Again, it's the idea of water really touches upon every single subject. So you can really, there's lots of fun ideas. And we definitely recommend families just look at their homes, shop their kitchen in a way, look for containers they have or things that they can make. This can be used with magnets as well.
I mean, if you don't have a fish net to scoop out things out of the water, you can use a colander, or you can use a sifter, or what do you call the spatula? Spatula. You can use a spatula. I'm thinking of the rounded one.
Spaghetti, yeah, the ladle. You can do like different.
Yeah, you can use a ladle too. Sure.
Yeah. Right. So we have some sensory play with ice, and this will take a little decision making of what animals you might like, and fun because in fact, what's going to happen when you take this outside and it melts, or you might have some kids hammering the ice to see what the animal is inside. So there's lots of discovery here.
Right, and you're talking about solids and liquids here. What happens to the water when you freeze? When you freeze it, it turns into ice. I love the picture on the bottom right, because what you're doing is you're freezing, and I have the link at the end. You're freezing different colored ice cubes, and you're putting them in water, and you're seeing them melt and create new colors as they mix. So if you're pulling yellow and blue, what color is water is going to occur once it's
Sarai, do you see the PowerPoint? I'm sorry, it appears that somebody may have taken the PowerPoint right to share. You can see it?
Yeah.
I see it.
Okay.
You can't scroll through it?
I see it.
No,
I
do not see it. Okay.
All right, I'll take control.
Thank you.
I see it.
Okay.
I see it.
It's gone black on my screen. Thank you.
Let's see.
Okay, thanks, guys. Thanks for your patience. Okay.
You may
Yeah,
that happened to me the other day too. It's a thing with teams getting overwhelmed. So if I were you, I would.
Oh, it's back.
Yeah. Welcome back.
Victory dance. Thank you. Okay, it might be with Sarai. I'm not sure. So
yeah.
are you? Yeah, you're moving.
Let me see
Okay,
if I'm
great.
moving
So
it. Do you want me to give it back?
Yeah, go back a little bit, because I think we. Yeah, we were
All
up
right,
the
so
pace. Yeah, perfect.
Okay.
Thank you so much. That was what I like to call the Christmas miracle. But in June. Okay, playing with it, and then we were going to go to the next one. Thank you. So really bringing in the science part. How does the temperature affect solids and liquids? And if you want.
Sorry, it's your sound is breaking up just a little bit for me, but do you want to take back control of the slideshow? It's up to you. But here we see how solids and liquids are being explored. The little girl on the bottom is moving ice into the water and seeing what happens.
I don't see anything.
You don't see anything?
No, it's blank.
Does anyone? Do you guys see?
I see it. I see.
I don't see
Yes.
it. Oh Lord.
I see it. I see it.
Okay.
I
You guys
see
see it? Okay, we're gonna keep it just as it is.
I see it.
Keep going.
Oh, nice.
Okay.
Okay.
I can't see anything. It's black.
Yes, exactly. It's black. It's dark.
Your issue.
Nothing.
You have
What I
117
would do is
people.
go back out and come back in.
We see it.
You have 117 people logged in. I think it's just getting a little overwhelmed, but you should be happy you have a big turnout.
I see
I
it.
see it.
I can see it also.
I can see you guys.
Liz,
All
Liz,
right.
what do you recommend to the people who can't see it, Liz?
So
I'm
they
not
go
sure. I think
come
it
back.
just may be a lag. if anyone has their video on, which I don't think they do, shut it.
They do. I see people with their video on. Everybody needs to turn their video off because it slows down the system. Sorry, guys. We love to see your faces, but it just slows down the system if you have your videos on. Okay. Also, make sure you're muted. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Okay. So let's see if we can jump back in here. 1 second. Jody, do you want to? Okay. So I see the slideshow on my screen. Joaquin?
I see the weather, rain clouds, puddles.
Okay. All right. Great. So we're back on track. Thank you, everybody. Okay. Jody, just unmute yourself, or I'll unmute you. Oh, yeah. I keep doing that. I'm sorry. I keep clicking on the wrong thing.
Okay. We will surely have rainy days. Rainy days are amazing days. And kids love the experience of rain, so why not celebrate? Not every adult is into rainy days, however, so you can bring the rain from what you have outside inside. There's a lot of hands-on ideas. This is a rain cloud with shaving cream that you can make with shaving cream and color.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm gonna do the head. Okay. All right. We have our after the rain with, yeah, we can do rainbow fish. Lots of ways to build in. Water does not need to be blue. Just need to put that out there for you. Water is not blue. It looks blue to our eyes, but there are so many colors in there. So have that opportunity to paint and decide what they're doing. This is a fun dot with Peter Reynolds. It's about a painter. And there's different things. There's different ways. Mixing watercolors is a science as well. So
Science of painting with Sarai.
Yes. There is a science to it.
Yes. Okay.
Did I miss any slides on that, Jody? Do you know?
It's okay. You know what? You're all welcome to have this presentation, and you can use it in any capacity. We'll share it with you afterward, but we wanted to just have this chat. So, yes. Is it moving? Not moving?
I wanted to ask a question.
Sure. Wait until the end to ask the question. That would be wonderful. Would that be okay?
Yeah.
If it in
sure.
there. Well, thank you so
Don't
much.
forget it. Yep.
That'll be
All
great.
right.
Forget
You
it.
could
Just
also-
jot it.
You can also write it in the chat so we can remember.
Okay.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Joaquin.
So we're really expanding. I mean, a lot of times people think like, I don't have the materials for things. And you can really, if you have a possibility of doing a little nature walk, going to any area nearby, taking a piece of bark, some stones, you know, just that alone, maybe a little Play-Doh or a little piece of fabric. You have your river, your pond, your ocean. It isn't taking so much. It's just more how you're using it. We've got toilet rolls for the lily pads, and just think outside the box. I see somebody's raising their hand. Okay, nice. So, you know, we have lots of pictures here, and if you do something like this with kids, you can really teach them about story and setting and how the characters interact with the setting, and that's so important. We have these scuba divers, which are there, and you want your kids to look and lean into what they're seeing and get interested, because this is really going to build on when they're old enough to write their own stories. So you might add your own text as a teacher, and you might have a story and recreate a story or create one, co-create it with them. And that's fun to do. And with early learners, you can give them choices and options of how to create the story. So we have some books matched and paired with different activities. These are, you can call them aquariums, you can call them different there's different projects, and really when we're reading and we're building this idea of what we're developing, like, so suppose it's fish, we're also bringing in the setting. So again, characters underwater, under the sea. These are phrases that we're bringing in. I love the Rice Krispies in there for showing stones in the bottom of the water. So try to be creative with the materials you're inviting families to use. Now we're getting into, this is like a personal passion of mine, how to use cardboard in many, many, many ways, all these different animals. So if you're deciding, like, I want to do some animals, you don't need to do all the different animals. You really want to ask your kids to pick, what are they interested in? Which animal, or a book that relates to, or a character that relates to a book that you're reading. So this is definitely fun to take a look at how to use different paper plates and cardboard and paper for animals. And characters, characters live places, and it's part of the story to also design that. It's not, again, as I said, it's not going to take much. It could be a circle of a blue piece of paper where they live, right? But what you're teaching kids is that characters live places and they do things, and that's the important engagement that you want to have with your early learners. That's part of the play-based learning. And telling number stories, it's not that we're saving math for after, but if you have engagement with kids and they have some interest in using, if they're really loving turtles, bring the turtles into your math. You can, create a number story. You can use it for different purposes, but just bringing it in is going to support them. Like, again, so they're becoming familiar with the top, very like it's transferable.
Sorry, the sound was a little broken up, so I wasn't sure we heard everything you said about it, but
oh, really? You didn't hear? Oh,
I think
did you
so.
not?
I think it was okay. Yeah, just basically bringing your characters in and working in a number story with your characters and your setting is a great opportunity to do some math skills.
Yes, so it's combining it. Yes. If you are, I just noticed somebody said they can't hear. I would log out and then come back in. Okay. Sorry about that. This, there will be recording, so you can check it out. My apologies. So here's another way. Again, love the paper plates. If you don't have paper plates, cardboard boxes are available. People are super, super creative with how to do it. And then also the idea of floating. It doesn't mean anything if it's just a word. So you really want to try out with kids, float and sing. We'll talk about that later on. Here's an example of animals, the frogs on the lily pads. Okay. This seems to be one of my favorites for some reason, these funny clams. You can make so many things with cardboard. They're just super creative. Love to make these. Kids have fun with them. And we also have a recycled bottle. So the bottom of the recycled bottles. And what you can do is use that as like the body of something. So that's a turtle, but you can also use it for the bottom of other animal creatures as well. It's the bottom of a bottle. I've built a habit in all these different things with. It's not easy to cut, so I would use an X-Acto knife. Stay clear of children when that happens after they go to sleep. Tell families, use it.
I can actually suggest an alternative to do that. You can use fruit cups, pudding cups. Those are all Jello cups, yogurt, all of those kind of containers to create the shell.
Are those marshmallows in the back there? Those little white balls?
Yes. Those
Are
are marshmallows. Those are the clams.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you. Somebody wanted to know.
They look pretty delicious.
We could use cotton balls.
Yeah.
Cotton balls, yes, for sure.
This is where your creativity comes in, because here you have, you have these books about fish and different things happening with the animals. Boom, makes the characters come alive. How are you doing this? Well, as you're doing a read aloud, if you have families make a character, you can have them hold it up as you're doing your read aloud. So if you design a read aloud online, you videotape it and the parent plays it, you can have the characters in front of you and they can, what are the characters doing? I don't know right now.
So the next few slides are going to be about
Nice.
vocabulary and word work. Go ahead, Jody.
No, you can get this.
No, I was just, we couldn't hear you clearly, so I was just kind of filling in.
Oh, okay, thank you. I would just, thanks. Yeah, this is word work. So any information, any animals you're talking about, whatever book you're reading, remember the sounds, because the initial sounds are wonderful. You can teach words by clapping them, octopus. Sounds, but most importantly is not just teaching the word by itself, is teaching it with the object that they can play with. So they're going to really make that connection. We don't want to just like give a list. They're not going to retain those. So it's really important to have a fun learning experience. Thanks. Okay. Someone needs to mute the bicycle. Okay.
Yeah,
Can you go one more? Okay. Yeah, more recycled materials. And sensory bins are wonderful. People often just have a sensory bin for just, you know, like relaxing and like enjoying. You might do something with fish, but this is equally as fun and engaging. It doesn't take so much. I know they do have sand here, which is relating to water. They have some seashells. Sometimes we have like 1 or 2 seashells in our house, you know, so you can ask families like, do you have any seashells? It's fun just to keep it. And learning our letter sounds, you know, you're also getting some fine motor here too. So, and math. So really incorporating is in a fun sensory based way. Nice. So we have some more fine motor. These are ping pong balls, and they can handle the Sharpie. Not everything can handle, and not everything can handle water. Water sometimes moves everything from stuff.
Right.
Now, if you design something like this, and you are giving a video and you are lifting it out, they're obviously not getting skills, but it's an example of something that families can do. And so we have sight words, and we have, think of words that we want the kids to experience, not just looking at the word, but also, you know, jumping like a frog or jumping onto different puddles. So thinking of it like that. Okay.
Water and vehicle.
So water. This
Joy,
is,
you had a question?
she had. You want to type it in the chat?
Can you hear me?
I'm sorry.
If you can
Yes,
type
we
it in
can
the
hear
chat box.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me? Okay. No, I just thought, I saw the gloves that you put up. They were really interesting. Can I see them again? The gloves with the rubber
you
gloves
will
with the
get
ice on them?
You will get a copy of the slideshow at the end of today, and you can look through it. Okay?
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
And what else were you saying about?
Whoops. Sorry, Joy. I muted you before you finished saying what you're saying. If you don't mind, we have a lot to cover before 2 o'clock. So you're welcome to ask questions at the end of the session. And Lourdes, I need you to keep your mic muted.
Thank you. This is just really, kids love thinking about, we know that transportation is fun, but when you see a boat or something like that actually floating on water, you kind of, it's an amazing experience for kids. So one of the things here is just building like how do vehicles use water. You may have taught this transportation unit. Now it's time to build it back in. Drive on what things move in water. And we're into now, we've got our boats. We have a whole bunch of different ideas for boats and ways to build your own boat. You can have songs with them. So these are vehicles on water called boats.
And you can make a sailboat. We're going to go into that in a little bit, but you can make a boat out of anything, right? Out of all kinds of materials.
Yeah, and tinfoil, another favorite for early childhood. I don't know if any of you have given a little child a piece of tinfoil. They will be thoroughly entertained. Why not build in a boat with that idea? Fun way to see if something can float, build your own boat. And it's wonderful STEM work because you're building it yourself and you're seeing cause and effect. Like if I make it like this, will it float? If not,
Okay.
some
So here
other
you have
ideas.
build a boat using recycled materials. And here, we put this in here, even though it can be a STEM activity, is the penny boats, where you create different shapes of boats from aluminum to see which one will hold the most pennies and you can make that into a math activity by counting how many go in there. Now you don't have to use pennies. It can definitely be substituted with different materials that you have at home. It can be anything that is, it needs to be a standard, it has to be the same piece, weight and mass. So like, for example, if you're gonna use Lego pieces, they all have to be the same Lego pieces, buttons, paper clips, rice, as you can see in the picture. It's just to see how much a boat can hold and which shape works the best.
And then we had a teacher say, Miss Hayes saying sink and float, which we also have a couple of things as well. Nice. If any of you remember, Curious George is very curious, but he makes these boats and out of paper, and they work and they're fun. Some of us are not a fan of the origami, but if you are, this is a fun thing for kids to paper boats.
All right.
It's a diorama also, yeah. This is, again, how many times have you seen egg cartons on here? I don't eat eggs all the time for every meal. However, there are lots of ways to do things with egg cartons that are pretty much usable for everything. So definitely recommend trying it out for different ways. Here's a little boat. And then the fascination with underwater. We have submarines. This is also thinking about the transportation. We have the boats that are going above the water and then the vehicles below the water. True fascination for lots and lots of kids. This is, if your kids are taking to something like this, again, we're presenting lots and lots of ideas. No one classroom will use all of these things, but these are ideas of how to take something. So if you're doing vehicles, the submarine, you could do it with the recycled bottles, or you could do it with paper. And so we have different ideas.
And there are a lot of science concepts with this idea of submersibles and seeing if you can make something stay underwater and how would you go about doing it. And there's definitely lessons out there for that sort of thing. Great STEM activity.
All right.
Experimenting with water. All right. So the first thing, if you remember when we had talked about the units within the grade levels. Grade 1 really doesn't have a unit on water. However, it does have a unit on light. And I feel like light is, and water is a very unique thing. And light acts very differently in water. In fact, it's probably something that engineers had to really explore when building submersibles. So having kids investigate how light works with water, just even blowing bubbles and talking about the reflection of light on the bubbles and what does that look like? It creates a lot of color, right? When you see a rainbow, how does that happen? That has to do with light and water crystals. And just even having jars of colored water in your kitchen and putting a flashlight to it to see how it goes through. Does it disperse? Does it go straight through? Does it create a shadow? Putting objects inside the jars to see what happens when you shine a light onto it. Can you see it through color? Can you see it better through blue, through red? So there's lots of things that you can do with light and water.
And I know Pre-K for All had done shadows as part of their, and light and dark as part of their curriculum too.
That's correct. That's correct. Perfect segue into how do we use water in our kitchens? We use it in practically everything in our kitchen. As making recipes, washing our dishes, boiling a pot of water for spaghetti or tea, mixing drinks. That alone could be an event where you could do with the kids. Making Jell-O. Why do you need hot water? Why do you need cold water? How does it become a gelatin? How does it become so still and stuff, right? How to become it's not a solid quite, but lots of solids and liquids talk in the kitchen. Okay, I always have to find that bar. So here's a science experiment. How much water will a sponge hold? Here's a kitchen item that I'm sure most households have. Just putting it in a pan and little bit at a time, adding water to see until it is soaked through, until it is holding all the water. And then going back to the vocabulary, squeeze all the water out. You can even measure it, standardized or non-standardized, right? How much water is in that sponge? Does it fill up a cup this much, that much? Compare it to another sponge. You could actually also do, when you do that, you could also measure how heavy it is. If you have a food scale in the kitchen, you can put it on a food scale and see how much it weighs and compare. Here's another investigation, water absorption, collecting a bunch of different materials around the kitchen, even recyclables, and seeing what absorbs water, like a sponge, or what is repellent, deflects the water off, where it just pours off. It doesn't go into the, sorry, I don't know why this keeps going on. So this is just gathering materials and basically pouring water over it. Measuring water temperature, hot and cold. So there are several different things that you could do. Just use a thermometer. I did this a lot in the classroom. Just move it from a cup of ice water to a cup of hot water. You can see how the thermometer changes between hot and cold. When you can see on the left side, the experiment with a bottle and the balloon. What happens when you put that in cold water? What happens to the balloon? And then what happens to it when you put it in hot water? And you'll see something happen about cause and effect. On the right, you see a picture of a homemade thermometer, and that requires adult supervision because it uses alcohol. But it's also a fun way of creating your own thermometer at home if you don't have one, and doing the same experiments where you dip it in hot and cold water to see what happens. Ice balls or ice balloons. What you do is you take a balloon, you fill it up with water, you tie it up, and you put it in the freezer. What happens the next day when you go check on it? It's a solid. And it's not only a solid, it's a solid ball, and it's a lot of fun to play with and to touch and to explore. And as you can see, it has colors on it. I attached a link at the end of the slideshow, but you use salt and sprinkle it over the ice. And what is the salt going to do to the ice? It's another exploration that you can do. And you can see what it does by pouring some food coloring on it and how the food coloring will demonstrate the effect of the salt on the ice. Great way to talk about solids and liquids and chemical reactions. Another experiment that you could do is, I forget what they call it, but it's something like walking colors or something like that, where you have 3 jars. The middle jar should be just clear water. The other 2 are 2 different colors. You run a paper towel from both cups into the middle, and you see what happens. The paper towel is absorbing the colored water, and it's transferring into the middle cup. It's fascinating. The celery on the right, if you put it into a cup of colored water, what's going to happen to it? And overnight, come back and check the leaves on the celery. It could be white flowers, daisies if you have. Will the color appear in the leaves? Pretty cool. Click. Weather. Do you remember weather was a year-long kindergarten unit? And here you can experiment with that by collecting rainwater. You can use standardized or non-standardized measurements again. Put it outside your window, on your fire escape, outside on your on the steps, and collect water for several weeks and see how much rainfall you've had over time. Here you have the water cycle. Some simple ways of introducing the water cycle to kids, just using a Ziploc bag with water and putting it somewhere where the sun will reach it on the window. You've seen how 2 different ways of labeling it. You have a very simple label on the top left where you have the sun and the clouds representing the heat and the clouds caused by the evaporation. On the bottom, you have a more detailed diagram on the bag showing the water cycle. And on the top, you have the rain cloud again, and just seeing how a cup of water left standing for a while will evaporate eventually and will go down over time. Same thing with the same idea with the water bottle on the right. It's just a water cycle in a bottle. And you can check out those links at the end of the slideshow. More science, sink and float. Sink and float is a tricky science concept. It is very sensory for young kids. You do not need to go into details about buoyancy at that point. It becomes very complicated, but it's a fun way to just make observations. When my kids were little, I put them in a bathtub with a bunch of water, a bunch of fruits and vegetables, and asked them to explore and discover and see which ones sank and which ones floated. So you can use a sink, you can use a bucket, a bowl, you can use any items in the house to just discover sink and float. Which boat will float? So there's different materials that you can use to investigate what works as a good sailboat. And you can see in the pictures, we have a soap boat, one made out of a juice box, one made out of popsicle sticks, one made out of sponges, some made out of apples. So there's lots of ideas, some of them listed at the end. Here we have, how do magnets work in water? So kind of like how light works with water, how do magnets work in water? Do they work differently than they work outside of water? And it's a great and fun investigation. And here you see a book that Jody added with what makes a magnet work, I'm assuming. Hey, so now that I sped talk through that, STEM unit projects. Go, Jody.
Yeah, you know what? One of the very first ideas, I was so excited for this. What if we built a water park? What would it take to build a water park from an early childhood perspective? And it would take cardboard and tinfoil and water and just kids' ideas, you know. So these are ideas for STEM projects, which are including engineering and building and math and science and art. And so, you know, this is just a one idea, but you can get lots of ways. We're going to show you some ideas for different bigger projects. If you decide to, if you're able to do water during the summer, of course you want to do what your school curriculum is, but if it is water or something like this will be perfect for you. So
I love the idea of building a water park. I think it's a lot of fun and definitely can be used with recyclable materials.
yeah, and what is that going to look like, and have kids design it? You can make a sprinkler. You know, what does a park have in it? You could start with a design using some graph paper and have kids create things. Now I know this is remote, however, you can just take pieces of like a slide. What does a slide look like? And how does it work to go on a slide? So slides are fun to bring. So the diorama, like with a city or a pond. So if you had something, maybe some of you built a habitat already, we did habitats, take out that diorama you did, and now you can really zoom in on some water. How is the animal that's living there using water? Maybe there's no water in that habitat. Well, then it's great to build that in. You could build in a stream, you could build in a river, an ocean, however, you know, whatever you'd like. It's more like a, or a
Didn't
city.
Didn't you build a whole city?
I did build a city, yes. I built a city. I built many cities out of cardboard and paper, but yeah, those are great. And then this is, of course, more of the scientific drip irrigation model where you might have a farm. And this is probably, you know, if this is your passion, you might be working with older students, you're a STEM teacher or a science teacher. Think about ways of showing something like this. This would be wonderful for kids to learn about the irrigation. So, you know, and another perspective, which is really the social studies in a way, how does water get clean? Taking a virtual trip to a water treatment plant, and you can really learn about what is done there and how it gets brought to different parts of the city and all the different ways.
Yeah.
You know, what it's like in our city. Mm-hmm.
We've had some wonderful STEM projects brought to the STEM fairs over the years that have to do with where they've actually built water treatment plants models. So it's a great project.
Mm-hmm. And then there's the Play Pump Challenge, which is it's an invention that was created for kids to play on a merry-go-round. As they're playing on it and spinning on it, it's pumping water from a well. And this is you can look this up. It's a really incredible invention. I learned about it years ago, but I think it's really, you know, pretty nice for social studies as well. How can water impact the community?
Mm-hmm.
So there's going to be lots and lots. You know, hopefully take some time and make some choices and decision. How are you going to approach this? But there's a way to build in lots and lots of things, lots and lots of ideas. Water. And just like, yeah. So
I'm sorry. Are you talking about the slide? I couldn't hear you.
Yes. Oh, you didn't hear? Can you hear me now?
I wasn't sure. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You can hear me now? Oh, I was just saying there's so many. I apologize. There's so many possibilities, just a more of a general, lots of questions to investigate. So you're not going to do all of them, but you're going to find what's just right for your students. And then how to build that out, especially build in things that they're interested in. And so that's why we have those nice big pictures, because you want your kids to lean in and maybe point to something and really, you know, build in some more interest in their things we spoke about. So just you guys, we really appreciate you joining us for this today, and we had so much fun just getting ready and coming up with it. And you'll have this PD is given to you. It'll be given to you Not right now, though. But we will be presenting this for you, and you'll be able to use different recommended ideas, lots of resources. And we'd love to hear back from you if you have right now any comments or anything you'd like to share. We'd love to hear from you guys. Has anyone done anything with water? You can unmute your microphones if you'd like to.
Yes, Nicole.
Hi. Yes,
Hi.
you did something nice. You'd like to share something you did with water?
Oh, what happened to Nicole?
Mrs. Hay- I know she has a first name.
Hello?
Should we turn off the recording at this point?
Share
Hello?
where the sign is in the link.
Yes. We cannot, we hear a lot of static.
Oh,
Hello?
Yeah, hello?
hi, Ms. Hayes. Would you like to
Yes.
share? Did you have a question? Something you want to share?
Yes, so what I love the walk in water, so we did it over a period of 2 weeks. So first we started out with only the 3 glass, and we add another. What if we had another one, another glass, another color? What would it be? That was really nice. So they liked it. So we went up to like 6 glasses, and then
Wow.
they were
That's
excited
awesome.
to do the experiment
Good.
and send it in.
Oh, fantastic.
That's
Not
great.
Yeah,
now.
both of them did it with their
A
brothers and
salad.
sisters, so they did a whole thing. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you
Yeah,
so
well,
much.
thank you for sharing.
Has anyone else done anything with water they'd like to share?
I have
Yes.
how to work with
Yes,
the
just say your
younger
name.
students. Oh,
Yes,
Okay.
we can't hear you. Somebody has a lot of static on the line. If you can just mute yourself if you're not speaking at the moment, please.
my name is Sylvia. Should I share or somebody else?
Yes, please. You can go ahead.
There.
So I use very simple activity with water with my 3 years old the other year. We just took the packets with water and paintbrush of different sizes, and we made strokes and art and letters and numbers like figures on the sidewalk in the sun. And then we just watch the art disappear in our
Oh, wow.
so that
I
was
love
the
that.
evaporation idea. Also, the other step was once that we made some shapes or art, they outline it with the chalk. So when the water disappeared, the chalk showed the outline and shapes that they made. So that was pretty
That's
cool.
very fun. Wow, I love that. Thank you so much. It's so perfect. It's
Yeah.
just lovely. Thank
That's a great idea.
you. Yeah. If you have an idea you'd like to share, email us. Oh, is somebody saying something?
I was going to say some participants wanted to know where to get the recording and the slide deck or the PDF.
Yes.
Okay,
So we will be posting that tomorrow.
They just
On
want
the
to know where
chat.
So we'll
It'll
be
be on.
posting it here.
in
We'll
this
post
chat.
it in the chat here, and I'll post it with the early childhood office, the team that was part of the invitation.
Thank
So, and if you don't have it and you would like it, you're welcome to email us, and I'll put the email in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I wanted to say something.
Okay.
Jody?
Yes.
Hello?